30,000 years ago, somewhere in the freezing dark, a wolf walked toward a campfire instead of away from it. That one decision, made by an animal that couldn't even understand what it was doing, changed the entire future of two species. No one saw it happen, no one wrote it down, but everything you know about dogs, every breed, every wagging tail, every animal sleeping at the foot of someone's bed tonight, traces back to that moment. A wolf that should have stayed in the forest didn't. And the thing is, humans didn't start this. We didn't go looking for wolves to tame. We didn't have some plans. The wolves came to us. And the reason they came is so simple it almost doesn't sound real. They smelled our garbage. Between 20,000 and 40,000 years ago, humans lived in small bands, maybe 20 to 50 people. No permanent shelter, no crops, no livestock. You moved constantly, hunted what you could, gathered what grew, and hoped winter didn't outlast your food supply. Most hunts failed. That's the part people forget. You didn't go out and come back with a kill every time. Some weeks, you came back with nothing. A broken bone, the kind of thing you'd get a cast for today, could kill you slowly because there was no one to set it properly and no way to stop the infection. Every single night, you built a fire, not for comfort, because without it, you were blind, cold, and completely exposed to things with better senses, sharper teeth, and no reason to be afraid of you. You'd sit close enough to the flames that your face burned while your back stayed freezing, and you'd listen. Because out there, past the edge of the light, things were moving. Wolves were one of those things. Jaws built to crush bone. Endurance that let them run prey into the ground over hours without stopping. Hearing and smell so far beyond human range, it's almost unfair to compare. In the dark, which was their world, they were close to untouchable. But here's what made this interesting. Humans were bad at being animals. Slow, loud, terrible night vision. But we were good at one thing wolves couldn't do on their own. We made waste. Bones with marrow still inside, scraps of fat and skin, half-eaten carcasses abandoned when a camp moved on. Even in the worst winters, a human camp was, from a wolf's perspective, free food, just sitting there, night after night. And that's where everything started to shift. Not with a plan, not with a decision, with leftovers. Now, inside any wolf population, there's natural variation. Some wolves were wired aggressive. They'd charge toward anything unfamiliar, teeth first. Those wolves approached human camps, threatened the wrong people, and got a spear through the ribs for it. Others were too skittish, so afraid of anything new that they stayed deep in the trees, fought over wild prey with every other predator, and a lot of them starved. But a small number, and this is the part that matters, were wired just a little differently. Not tame, nowhere close, but calm enough to creep toward a camp at night, snatch a bone from the edge of the firelight, and disappear before anyone reached for a weapon. Those wolves ate better than the aggressive ones who got killed and the fearful ones who never came close. They survived harsher winters. They had more pups. And their pups inherited that slightly calmer wiring. Now multiply that by 1,000 generations. No human made a single conscious choice in this process. Evolution was just doing what it does, filtering quietly, keeping what works, discarding what doesn't. The bold but not dangerous wolves thrived near humans. The violent ones died. The timid ones competed for scrapping wild prey and lost. Over centuries, the wolves living near human settlements started becoming something different. Not dogs yet, not by a long stretch, but not fully wild wolves either. Their fear response was softening. Their tolerance for noise, for fire, for the strange, unpredictable behavior of humans was higher than any wolf that stayed in the deep forest. They were domesticating themselves, and nobody on either side knew it was happening. But we don't have to guess that this works, because someone actually tested it. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev started an experiment in Siberia that would run for decades. He wanted to understand the mechanics of domestication, and his method was so simple it almost sounds like a joke. He took a population of wild foxes. Every generation, he picked only the calmest ones and let them breed. That was it. No training, no special treatment. Just, which foxes are least afraid of humans? Breed those. Repeat. Within a few generations, the foxes started behaving like different animals. They wagged their tails when researchers walked in. They whined for attention. They licked hands. They made eye contact, something wild foxes never do. But then something happened that Belyaev himself didn't predict. Their bodies started changing. Floppy ears showed up. Snouts got shorter. Fur broke into patches of white and brown. Tails curled upward. These foxes were starting to look like dogs, and nobody had selected for any of those physical traits. Not one. Scientists now call this the domestication syndrome. When you breed for lower aggression, a whole cascade of other changes comes along for the ride. Softer faces, more juvenile features, lower stress hormones, higher social tolerance. It's like the body follows wherever the temperament leads. The foxes didn't just act differently. They looked different. They sounded different. They moved through the world like animals that had never existed before, because they hadn't. And the same process almost certainly happened with wolves near Ice Age camps. The proto-dogs were probably already looking a little different from wild wolves. Slightly smaller jaws, slightly rounder faces, slightly less like something you'd run from. Ice Age humans noticed everything, because noticing everything was how you didn't die. They would have seen the difference. And that's when this stopped being an accident. The calmer wolves hanging around camp weren't just harmless scavengers eating scraps. They were useful. Seriously useful. Wolves hear low frequencies humans can't detect. They smell predators long before anything is visible. They can track prey across ground and through weather that would leave a human hunter completely lost. A wolf near your camp at night was basically a living alarm system you never asked for and didn't have to feed on purpose. When a bear moved in close, the wolves reacted before any human heard a thing. When strangers entered the territory, the wolves knew first. Camps with wolves nearby almost certainly lost fewer people than camps without them. Once both species were getting something out of the arrangement, things accelerated fast. Humans probably started leaving scraps deliberately. Pups born near camp got picked up by human hands. Some of those pups never went back to the forest. And here's the thing that makes dogs different from every other domesticated animal in history. They came first, before sheep, before cattle, before goats, before farming was even invented. While our entire species was still nomadic, still wandering, still building a new fire every few nights in a different place, dogs were already with us. And when we eventually changed, they changed too. When agriculture showed up thousands of years later and human diets shifted toward grain, dogs evolved to digest starch far better than wolves ever could. They reshaped their own biology to keep up with us. At some point, and nobody can say exactly when, this relationship crossed a line. Science found something buried inside the bond between humans and dogs that has nothing to do with hunting or protection. When you look into your dog's eyes, both of you release oxytocin. That's the same hormone that surges between a mother and a newborn. The same chemical your brain uses for its deepest, most protective bonds. Wolves don't trigger this response in humans. Only dogs do. Somewhere along the line, these two species got wired into each other's emotional circuitry at a level that has nothing to do with food or protection. And dogs didn't develop this by accident. They evolved specific facial muscles that wolves don't have. Muscles that create the raised inner eyebrow and wide, soft eyes we instinctively read as emotion. What we casually call puppy dog eyes. Dogs that could make those expressions got more food, more warmth, more care. Evolution literally rewarded emotional connection. Then there's a grave in Germany. Archaeologists excavating a 14,000-year-old burial site found a man, a woman, and a dog buried carefully together. Not thrown in, placed with intention. The dog's bones showed it had been seriously ill as a young animal, sick enough that it would have died without sustained care. Weeks of feeding by hand. Weeks of keeping it warm when warmth was the most expensive thing anyone had. But it didn't die. It recovered. It lived alongside those people for years, and when it eventually passed, they buried it with themselves. Not in the refuse pile, not outside the camp, with them. These were people living on the edge of extinction. Every calorie mattered. Every hour of rest mattered. And they chose to spend resources keeping a sick animal alive. Not because it was useful, because they cared about it. No one planned this. No ancient council decided to build a new species. It started with scraps at the edge of a fire and a few wolves born slightly less afraid than the rest. Evolution did what it always does, quietly, patiently, selecting for what works. And what worked was trust. Over thousands of generations, through ice ages and migrations and the invention of everything we now call civilization, humans and dogs kept finding each other, kept choosing each other, kept reshaping each other. The greatest partnership between two species in the history of life on this planet didn't begin with a plan. It began with hunger and proximity and two very different animals deciding slowly, without a single word between them, that the world was less dangerous together. Tonight, your dog will fall asleep near you. It has no idea that this moment is the echo of something that started 30,000 years ago. Two species circling the same fire, learning not to be afraid, but now you do.